Prime Minister Julia Gillard arrives in Hawaii shortly for the APEC forum, where she'll be pushing for Asian economies to buttress themselves against the threat of a European financial meltdown. Tony Abbott's also walking the world stage. Today he met Britain's Chancellor of the Exchequer and expressed confidence in the European economy. The government's accusing him of having a bet each way after talking down Europe's prospects last week. Political correspondent Tom Miggleton's in Canberra and filed this report.
On the shores of Waikiki, they're bracing for one almighty wipeout.
The crisis in Europe remains the central challenge to global growth.
And the central point of discussion at a meeting of APEC finance ministers today. Wayne Swan says Europe should have been watching its back before the crisis struck.
These issues have been on the agenda. It's not as if they've snuck up on anyone, and people are dismayed at the failure of the Europeans to get their act together and to deal with these issues.
But that's not how Tony Abbott's reading things after a meeting with Britain's finance minister in London.
My sense from the discussions I've just had with the Chancellor is that the European leaders are starting to grasp the nettle.
Last week, Mr Abbott attacked government plans to loan money to the International Monetary Fund to help support European economies.
Why is the government planning to provide money it doesn't have to prop up the eurozone, which is the world's largest economy?
Back in Waikiki, Kevin Rudd accused Tony Abbott of a backflip on the question of IMF support.
This is a person who rapidly and readily changes his mind from one day to the next, depending on who he's with and apparently what piece of public opinion poll research that he's read.
I never said that we shouldn't do what's required to be good international citizens. What we shouldn't do, though, is be party to any arrangement which simply throws good money after bad.
But the mood in Hawaii is all about how Asia can avoid an oncoming financial tidal wave.
In this region, we can do much, much better than they've done in Europe by putting in place the fundamental reforms that are required to strengthen our economies and to build in the resilience.
How best to do that is set to pit APEC's two largest members against each other. The Americans have reiterated their call for China to stop making gestures about free trade and revalue its currency for the good of the regional economy.
Chinese firms want to buy more high-tech products from us, make more investments in our country, and be accorded the same terms of access that market economies enjoy. We can work together on these objectives, but China needs to take steps to reform.
Australia and some of China's other neighbours are expected to support that call. China will resist, and there could be more tension when Julia Gillard meets with Chinese leaders. Fairfax newspapers are reporting that Darwin will soon host a training base for US Marines. The report says an announcement's due next week during President Obama's visit to Australia.
It's important that we await the President's visit before confirming any particular elements of what that defence cooperation may entail.
I think this is a move which carries some real risks because it does tend to suggest that Australia supports an American approach to China which emphasises military confrontation and containment rather than some kind of accommodation.
Military and economic rivalry is nothing new between China and the United States, and the threat of another global economic downturn does heighten tensions, as well as put Australia in the position of having to please both its biggest trading partner and its traditional security blanket. Tom Miggleton, Late Line.